Hey, this is a little video for the assessment team, the assessment committee. We're not going to meet before fall in service, so I just wanted to make sure that everybody's on the same page about what's going on at fall in service and then what's going to be going on for the rest of the year as well. So we have a number of tasks we're going to go through for fall in service and for 2022 and 2023. The most important thing, in my opinion, is the assessment accountability forum. In the past 3 years, especially with COVID and things like that, it's been kind of hard to figure out what exactly the role of the assessment committee members is. And so one of the things that I came up with was trying to have the assessment committee members kind of hold the rest of the faculty accountable for getting their assessments in on time, making sure that they're doing them correctly, make sure that they're following through on their 7-year plan. So one of the things that I've created is an assessment accountability form, and in fall, all of the departments and programs are going to fill out this form that basically just says what courses are you planning to assess in the fall based on your 7-year plan, and who are the people or person that are going to be assessing that course. And then they're going to turn that into me or into the team, and then the team will have those forms and will check in on the people in their department or their program throughout the year to make sure that they're doing their assessment at the time that they should be doing it and not waiting until the last day of the year to get started on assessment. We're going to try to do an assessment audit. And so if you go to the assessment page on Big Bend's homepage and you look under assessment plans, you'll find the 7-year plan for your program and all the other programs. And one thing that we haven't done is gone back through and seen, are people actually assessing the things that they said that they were assessing? Now, for most people, this will just be a yes, but there's some people, every year I get emails from individuals that say, hey, we were going to teach this class, but we didn't end up teaching it, or hey, I just forgot to do my assessment for this class. So we want to go back through and make sure that there's not any missing parts in the 7-year plan, and to kind of make sure that the things that people said that they assessed, they did assess. So we'll, if we have time, we're going to have faculty kind of checking their 7-year plans, maybe checking it against the assessment reports that they submitted, and trying to figure out if we're actually doing what we're supposed to be doing. We're going to distribute the assessment report. I haven't completed this report and submitted it. Actually, I have completed it as of today, but I'm waiting for a few more things to come in, and so I'll probably submit that into the administration soon here, and then I'll send that out to all of you as well. But one of the things that we've done in the past is spend a lot of time distributing the assessment report and talking about it. The problem is that now the assessment report used to be due into the school year, and now we have the assessment report due at the end of summer. And so while the administration doesn't mind if it's a little bit late, we're trying to get kind of a schedule going for the assessment committee that keeps things on track. In the past, sometimes we would be working on the assessment report a year and a half after everybody had submitted their assessments, and it just made things so confusing. So we really like to have that assessment report done before fall quarter, and because of that, we don't really have the ability for faculty to be taking the assessment report and doing a lot of things with it before the report is written or before that final report is written. That's not to say that we're not involving faculty in what happens in the assessment report. There's 2 ways that we involve faculty. One is every department or program has a faculty member that's part of the assessment committee. So you're kind of the liaison for the rest of the college in thinking about how the assessment report gets used and what big takeaways we use to make changes on campus. The other thing is, once we have a report out for the faculty to read, they can kind of take that information and have suggestions for the college, for the institution, on how we might make changes that are valuable, and then those will go into assessment, to assessing the next year, and obviously we'll go into the assessment report under that following year. So for the last 3 school years, we've been doing institutional outcome assessments. So institutional outcome 1, communication, 2, math, and 3, human relations. And this next year is going to be a little bit different because we don't have an institutional outcome that we're asking faculty to look at. This next year, faculty will be looking at outcomes that have to do with their programs that fall outside of those institutional outcomes. And because of that, we don't have a prepackaged assessment plan. So typically in the last 3 years, actually the last 4 years, we've created some assessment plans that people can kind of just fit to their class and they don't have to do a lot of work on them. But because everybody's kind of doing their own thing, we don't have something like that. And so what I want to try to have people do this year is to try to create something like a prepackaged plan or just an idea for assessment based on a program outcome that their program is going to look at. And maybe not all programs are going to decide that everyone in the program is looking at one particular program outcome. But especially for the academic side, it is the case that we have 2 program outcomes that are involved in a lot of classes on campus. So program outcome 4, program outcome 5. So if we look at the 7-year plan for the English department, you'll see that in 2022, 2023, we focused all of the classes that have a program outcome 4, we have put in this year. And so we're going to assess program outcome 4 in this upcoming year. And the following year, we're gonna look at program outcome 5. And so what I'd like for the academic side to do, most of the 7-year plan should be reflected in this way. And I'm going to try to have us all spend some time trying to come out with an assessment that works with program outcome 4, so students will be able to recognize or articulate personal and interpersonal aspects of or connections between diverse cultural, social, or political contexts. Now, some faculty may have done program outcome 4 this last year. Actually, I know they have. And so, as we get to the part where we're not all doing institutional outcomes, it's going to become a little bit more individualized, but I'd still like to try to draw connections across campus as much as possible. Part of the reason for this is that when we go to write the report, we need to show that there's institutional level assessment going on along with course assessment. And so if departments or programs are all assessing the same thing, it's very easy to kind of make larger connections at the institutional level. The last thing that we're going to try to do is, and we haven't talked through the details of this, so I don't know what it'll look like exactly, but we're going to try to incentivize assessing for improvement. So if you've watched the Assessing for Improvement video, which all of you should because you're on the assessment committee, it basically goes like this. We start with a problem, we try teaching in a way that solves that problem, or we try changing something, and then we provide before and after data. For some of you that are doing assessing for improvement already, it seems pretty obvious, but we do get a number of assessments, I would say about half, that are just assessing for competency. And basically what that means is that somebody is just basically saying, okay, program outcome 3 or course outcome 4 says my students will learn to balance this equation or something like that. And then they provide a homework assignment that does that, or that asks students to do that, and then they say, well, 80% of my students did that, so obviously they are meeting that outcome. Or they say, only 20% of my students did that, and so obviously they're not meeting the outcome. But they never actually do anything in their assessment to make a change, see how that change went, and then record the results. They're basically starting, if you look at the assessment process, they're starting too early in the assessment process, and we want people to be starting for what they're submitting to us later in the assessment process. We want you to be starting at the point at which there's a problem. So say, students should be getting this outcome of being able to balance this equation. However, they're not. Only 20% were able to last year. So in order to try to fix that, I'm going to change this thing, and then I'm going to record the results of whether my changes in teaching worked. Now, the reason a lot of people don't end up assessing for improvement is because a lot of people don't end up starting assessment until it's too late to do that. So you can always assess for competency after the class is already over, because you can look at the data and you can say, are they meeting this outcome or not? But when you assess for improvement, you have to start that process of recording earlier. And so a lot of people just literally can't do it because they don't start their assessment when we'd like them to, which is during the quarter. So what we are thinking of doing is incentivizing people for assessing for improvement by maybe giving people gift cards. So if you turn in your assessment and your assessment does assess for improvement, then you'll get a $10 or a $20 gift card for that assessment. Now, I realize that's not a lot, but it also isn't really a lot of extra work to switch over from doing assessing for competency to assessing for improvement. I would say honestly on my assessment work probably adds just a little bit. It just means that I have to look ahead just a tiny bit, and we're hoping that this incentive will give people just enough to say, okay, I'll do it a little bit early. It's worth it for me to do it just a little bit early. Outside of thinking about fall and in-service, we have tasks for the year that we're trying to do. So the follow-ups on the assessment accountability form, that's going to be everyone who's watching this video, that's going to be your main task for the year. We are going to start getting back into quarterly meetings. So I recognize that a lot of you are kind of new to the committee, and so what you've probably seen is that I send out a video and an email every once in a while, and then I have an optional meeting that you can come to. In the past, we always had quarterly meetings where everybody's got to show up in person, and we will probably begin those again starting a few weeks after in-service. So the thing to know about the assessment committee that's a little bit different than all other committees, and I know the college right now is kind of working on creating a college-wide schedule for meetings, but the thing that you have to know about the assessment committee meetings is that we have a representative from almost every part of the college on our committee. And so what that means is that we have to meet at kind of strange times to make that work for everyone. In the past, I've suggested that the assessment committee meets at 7 a.m., but nobody else except for a few unique individuals like myself like that. And so what we end up doing almost every year is meeting at about 4:30 on either Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. And so I would just understand that most likely that's when we will have to meet is on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday at 4:30 one of those days. And I try to make it a time that everybody can meet, but obviously it doesn't work across the board when you have so many people from so many different places. The college has recently started implementing program audits across the entire campus. So in the past, program audits, especially if you're on workforce side, you probably know what a program audit is, but it's very similar to an assessment. It is a type of assessment, but there's some pretty specific things that the state requires for programs to be programs. And what we're going to try to do is integrate some of those things that the program audit does with the assessment, with the things that the assessment does, so that we're not doubling up on work every single time that we do both of these things. So that's just something to think about. I don't even know exactly what that's going to look like, and nobody does yet, so we're still working on it and thinking about it, but it's just something to keep in mind. And then last, we're going to have ongoing training for assessment committee members, and I don't know what that will look like yet either. I think what I'm trying to do is develop kind of a standard process so that when you're on the committee, you don't feel lost in the fact that maybe I haven't talked to you in 6 months or something like that, and you're not exactly sure what you should be doing on the committee. I'm trying to make the tasks much more clear, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that when I started being the assessment chair, we were kind of transitioning from the way we used to do assessment to the way we're currently doing assessment. And that happened and then overlapped almost immediately with COVID. And so we had so much change and turmoil, and it just was really hard to try to explain assessment, especially when we had a big turnover last year on the assessment committee members, try to explain assessment to new people and try to accomplish the tasks that assessment needs to do in order for the college to continue having its accreditation. Some of you might not know this, but assessment was a big problem for the accrediting body, well, really for Big Bend. The accrediting body had given us a recommendation for assessment for a number of years, and it was getting towards a point where we were going to be in real trouble if we didn't fix it. And so that's the top priority. That was the top priority. And now the priority is kind of shifting to making sure that some of you are getting on the same page with me and getting on the same page with what it is that you should be doing on the committee. And then once we get that kind of settled in, then we can kind of hammer out some of the details, and we can start trying to figure out if there are better ways we can do things and ways we might be able to change things. But for right now, really, we're trying to keep the process very similar for faculty because of all that turmoil that happened, all that change that happened. You know, for a long time, when I was first at the college, assessment was really kind of a bitter subject because faculty felt like it changed every single year and they didn't know what they were supposed to be doing. So for the past 4 years, I've kept things the exact same in an attempt to make faculty feel at ease with the process. And I've also provided videos, a lot of videos for faculty so that they can go back and review things when they need to, when they're actually doing their assessment. And I think that that's been successful. I would say that the number one positive comment that I get from faculty every quarter is that they feel like assessment is so much easier than it was in the past. So just recognize if there's a few things that you don't love about assessment. If you're looking at what I'm doing and you're like, I think it's weird that we do this or stupid that we do this. Just know that a lot of it just has to do with trying to be consistent and trying to make the process work for a large number of people. And I recognize that there's some things we could do better, and I'm hoping that we get to that soon. Thank you for listening, and feel free to reach out to me with any questions or concerns. I'll see all of you in service, but if I don't know if I'll talk to any of you before then. I'm sure I'll talk to some of you, but I don't know what that will look like. So, yep, just be prepared to get a meeting invite for a few weeks after the quarter starts.